Daytime Emmy winner Niecy Nash, and now primetime Emmy nominee for your HBO show, Getting On. I saw your tweet where you were sobbing over your Emmy nomination. Now, were those happy tears, shocked tears, elated tears? Did you stub your toe or something?
You know what happened? I was working that day, and I wasn't thinking about, I wasn't really that present to the nominations. I mean, I knew they were coming out, but I didn't have a publicist. I wasn't campaigning. So I stepped away because they were moving the cameras around. And I said, oh, well, let me go get a cup of coffee. And on my way back, somebody said, congratulations, Miss Niecy. I said, congratulations on what? And they said, I don't know. Somebody said over the walkie-talkie that you won something. I said, oh, what did I win? And then I looked up, and our writers walked towards me and said, ladies and gentlemen, we have an announcement. Our Niecy Nash has been nominated. And I started sobbing like a baby. I don't want to even think about it too hard right now because I will cry these eyelashes right off my eyes. Do you hear me? But I was lucky. I was a lucky girl because I'm on a show where we're supposed to look horrible. So since I was doing my ugly cry, I was right on time. I was like, hey, this is getting on. It doesn't matter if I look horrible. That's how I'm supposed to look. So those were real tears. And I was so emotional and so overwhelmed because I didn't know that anyone was watching our little show. I didn't know that, that the industry was as present. And so it was such a gift.
Well, you won an Emmy, a daytime Emmy back in 2010 for Clean House. And, now just receiving, as you just said, how overwhelming it was, your first primetime Emmy nomination as, a standing support actress in the comedy series. What did this nomination of the TV, mean to you coming from your TV Academy peers? I mean, it must have just been I'm sure you probably still don't have quite the words for it.
Grateful. I was very grateful and very overwhelmed. For such a long time, I've always wanted to do and seen on the canvas of my imagination the sort of work that I'm doing now on Getting On. But when I entered into the industry, I entered in at a place that was very big and very broad. Doing a lot of characters, the Reno 911s of it all, the Bernie Mac show, a lot of the shows that I entered doing kind of put a label on me, and the industry said, oh, you do that. And I said, well, I could do something else. And they were like, oh, no, dear, you do that. And it was very, very difficult for me to get any other sort of audition. So I just get overwhelmed when I think about the gift that Getting On has been, and the fact that it was as if my peer group said, we see you. And you're not going to make me cry, wait. Okay, blink back. They said, we see you, and I was like, wow. So it is especially sweet because I stayed on the outside looking in for so long. And now I get to join the party and be acknowledged in the party. I don't know if it gets any better.
Now, speaking of your Reno 911 days, we have another editor of ours, Charles Bright, who just joined, and I know he's a huge fan of yours, especially from back in those awesome days. So, Charlie, you have a question?
Well, actually, my first question is about Getting On. Niecy, thanks so much for talking to us. Hey there. So I have to say, Getting On is such an amazing show. What was it like when you first read the script to this? Did you know? Because my guess is if you're not seeing it, it's kind of hard. It might be hard to interpret it as a comedy just reading it. What was your reaction when you first read the script to that?
Well, you know what? You ask a very interesting question because when I read the script, and Getting On is based off of a BBC version. Mm-hmm. I tried to go and pull up the BBC version online, and I was not able to see it at all. I didn't get to see any clips. I didn't get to see anything. But when I went to audition, I auditioned for the role of Dawn, which is the role that Alex Borstein plays. I got a call back. And at the callback, all the time I'm preparing, I keep looking at this other character. I'm preparing for what they asked me to do, but I'm looking at this other character. So I get in there and I go, hey guys, would anybody mind if I read this other thing? And they said to me, absolutely not. We don't see you as that character and we don't want you to read that. And I said, okay. I said, well, the only reason I brought it up is, and I started talking about all the reasons why I love this woman on the page. Because if you remember in season 1, she didn't really say a lot, but you saw this world through her eyes. And it was just the look on her face that told it all. And I said, that seems so interesting to play. And they said, well, we didn't plan on you reading it, but you want to come back on Friday? I said, no, sir, I do not. I am here right now. And they said, well, we don't have the material ready. And I said, well, it's a good thing that I don't have nothing else to do. I'm going to go sit out here and wait. And then I walked out and saw Laurie Metcalf, and I was like, Laurie freaking Metcalf, I love her. And, you know, and once I came back in and was able to read for this part, they said they knew before I got out the door that I was their girl.
Wow. Well, you know, I mean, with the show, as you just explained, or you know, and as Charlie pointed out, it's a very I mean, it's a dramedy to a very, you know, to the T, because there's some heavy stuff in there. You know, I mean, even in the episode that you submitted, which we'll get to in a little bit, I mean, you know, you have a terminal patient there in there. How for you as an actress, I mean, you know, going from the Soul Man, which I believe you're on the 5th season of now, you know, going on from the Soul Man and then coming, you know, having to escape that character and come into, you know, a much more, you know, not as fancy, glammed up character. How big of a transition is that for you to, you know, go from that kind of comedy to some of this heavier stuff with the nice blend of comedy?
Well, you know, I think our writers are so skilled at presenting a piece of material that can make you laugh and also make you cry. And it speaks right into my wheelhouse because I always try to find the comedy in everything, because how can you survive otherwise? I know I wouldn't be able to. I've experienced so much tragedy and in my life, and I always say, thank God I don't look like what I've been through, because I've been through so much, but my way to cope and balance and deal with it all is through comedy. So this is a perfect vehicle for me because it handles things exactly the way I do.
I gotta say also, I am the son of a nurse. My mother just binged the 1st season of it, and she could not say more wonderful things about this show.
Oh, yay! Tell your mom, hi, Mama. Listen.
Her name's Arlene. Her name's Arlene.
Hi, Miss Arlene. Listen, I love when I hear from real nurses, you know, and medical staff, you know, with boots on the ground that say, oh my goodness, you guys nailed it. This is how it is. This is exactly what happens in my ward. And so I love that. Also, to hear from caregivers, because there are so many people out there who have experienced this sort of thing. And lastly, I'll say this. One of the biggest gifts that I feel like as a viewer, now I'm talking, this is Niecy Nash watching, getting on as a whole, and experiencing it on set, is that we get to have women of a certain age leading the charge, being complex, being creative and funny. Not only that, but our guest stars. I don't know where else you can go and find a gang of women on the south side of 60, some on the south side of 70, 80. We got patients in their 90s where you can still come and get a job, and it's not, and you're not the butt of a joke. But you are a valued guest. We welcome you. We admire you. We respect you. Man, what we gonna turn to when this show is gone? We can't, you know what I mean? And so I have been just a fan of it because of that. You know, some of our guests go all the way back to the vaudeville days. You know what I mean? And I'm just perched on the chair every time they say cut, like, tell me more. It's so interesting.
What I was wondering is, have there been any things that, you know, when you've read a script or you see a situation on there and you go, oh God, yes, I've been there and I've been through that, and you've drawn on that to kind of bring out more of the humor in the situation?
Well, recently we had a loss in our family. We had my mom's sister, my aunt, was on hospice, and I was able to go and be with her prior to her transition. And what I noticed was that I approached it in my personal life with a sense of comedy. You know, in front of her. You know, some tears on the other side of the door, but in front of her, I wanted to bring what she was familiar with. Now, Dee Dee, the character I played, not so funny in terms of, you know, she's not a wise, cracking kind of a girl. You know what I mean? She's more of every woman. And I love about her that you enter this world through her eyes, you know, and so having that experience with my aunt and then being able to play Dee Dee, you do bring a little of your real life experience to the character.
Now, kind of on that same subject, so you know, what I imagine would also be kind of difficult is the transition going from The Soul Man, which has a live audience, to now going to Getting On, where you don't have that instantaneous reaction of, you know, if this joke worked or it landed or whatnot. You know, is going teetering back and forth for you as an actress? Is that difficult at all, or is that something that, you know, after 5 seasons and 3 seasons now on Getting On, that you've kind of just become accustomed to?
Well, the thing about Getting On is that our crew is very invested. They're very invested in these characters and in these storylines. And when you nail it, you know. You know what I mean? It's not because we have a laugh track, but we do have everyone from grips to sound to props to hair and makeup and so on and so forth, who will definitely let you know once it's over if that was the one.
And Ralph, do you mind if I ask about the episode submission, or do you want to take that?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So your episode submission, you submitted episode 4 to the Emmy voters, the 7th annual Christmas card competition. What about that episode made it stand out to you as this is what you wanted to have the Emmy voters view?
To be quite honest with you, that was an episode that HBO enjoyed, and HBO thought it would be the better episode to submit. I was really torn because I liked the first episode of season 2 a lot, you know, and I was just like, oh, I don't know, I just couldn't make up my mind. So I just went with the network's choice and said, okay, well, we'll see what happens.
Well, HBO certainly has a good record of getting their stars and their shows Emmys. So, you know, I don't think they're going to lead you in a bad track there.
Oh, well, I don't think so either. So I just said, well, they probably know better than I. So let me just follow their choice in it all. But I love it when I look back at an episode and some of the ad libs that I do make it into the series, you know, because you never know. But in both of the episodes that I was considering, the one that they picked and also the one I was thinking about, there are both some ad libs in there that I just love so much. So I felt like, you know, either way, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I imagine this 7th annual Christmas card competition let you have a lot of ad libs just because of, you know, your what the I guess the birdie element of it all, you know, Miss Birdie, and you know, trying to figure out whose genitalia that that was, I'm sure opened up some nice comical moments over there. Especially, I think you were at your computer and you had one line that was really funny. You're like, that's not black.
Oh, yes. And you know what? That was a make-me-up. That was a make-me-up. So I was so happy that that made it into the script. Hey, how are you accusing me? It's not even black.
It's not the issue. It's a HIPAA violation.
Yes. Yes.
Well, it is a great episode. I mean, you know, you have the birdie element in there. You have, I believe it's Carrie Preston who was, you know, the terminal patient there. And then you dealt with a potential kind of crush that you had on, or at least, you know, everybody else thought around you that you had a crush on this doctor that was there. And you had a great moment at the end with him. You know, how is it having, you know, with this episode that you submitted, having such a full plate of great things to play with? It seems like every episode on Getting On, you get a lot of great stuff to work with. It's not just, you know, you're a side character or you're just there. I mean, you have so much that you get to play around with in an episode, and it kind of always comes full circle.
Yeah, you know, I go again back to the writing. Will Schaefer and Mark Olson did a beautiful job writing these characters that are so, you know, complex and have these really full lives. You know, we're in the middle of filming season 3 right now. The best by far. And I'm not saying that because I'm in it. I'm just telling you that this 3rd season, oh my gosh, is so good. It is. I'm literally, Alex Borstein and Lori Metcalf, myself, after we wrap, we stand around in the parking lot just talking about the writing and where the characters are going and what happened in scenes. I'm like, girl, I got a husband at home. I got to go. You know, but we can't stop being that connected and drawn to the material this season.
You've got Jonathan Silverman this season, which must be a lot of fun.
Yes, we do. Yes. You know what? I didn't have any scenes with him, but he was lovely. We sat next to each other in the table read.
He's a fantastic actor. I do want to just change a bit of direction and ask about your the time on Reno 911. I recently rewatched some of my favorite episodes, specifically Rainisha X, one of my favorite episodes. You and Cedric Yarborough going door to door to all the white people, telling them they're the white devil, but we're taking donations. This is just one of my favorite scenes. That plays into like what you were talking about with you know, ad-libbing, because Reno 911 was so improvised, and
right.
Someone on that show who you looked forward to, like if you saw you had a scene with them, you're like, this is going to be nuts.
You know what, I would think that about all of them, because I thought it was brilliant, and I was an improv novice. So when I booked that job, you know, I kind of faked my way into it, because originally it was supposed to be sketch. And somebody said, can you do it? And I was like, absolutely. And then I called my friend and said, wait, what is sketch? You know, but then after we got started, they said, we're going to switch this to improv. And I'm like, what is that? And they said, you have to think on your feet and be in the moment. And I was like, okay. I was married to my first husband then, and I had been arguing with him for years, so I could think fast. And I said, well, I can do that. I got to think fast. I know how to do that. So I, you know, just kind of wrangled my way in there, and it all worked out. But I feel like that's kind of par for my course, because even with my first job in this industry, I booked my very first job because I called the casting director and I said, I'm broke, I got a baby, and I need a job. And he said, well, come down here at 3 o'clock. And I did an audition. I basically went to a producer session for a film, and that was Boys on the Side with Whoopi Goldberg and Drew Barrymore. It was my very, very first job. So there's always been like this unconventional way that I've entered into these different, you know, different jobs or different places in the industry. And I'm just really happy even with this. If I had not asked that question, hey, can I read this other thing? And I'm not leaving, so don't say no. And I'm not coming back another day because I'm here right now. Would I have even gotten this opportunity? You know, and so I don't always know that my methods are conventional, but they work for me, I think. So, you know, I'm just grateful that I've been able to taste it all. I mean, to be able to be on Reno for 6 seasons and a movie, and then turn around and get this gift to play Dee Dee Ortley, what? I'm a hashtag happy actor right here.
And you've also gotten to be in some amazing movies as well. Seeing you in Selma, I was like, oh, it's Niecy Nash, and it's awesome.
And do you know, Ava DuVernay is another angel that I love who directed Selma. Ava saw me in a tiny little scene in Getting On, where I maybe only had 2 or 3 lines. And she said, that's my Richie Jean. And she called me at home. So, you know, and there you have it. And I was like, wow, wait, what? I thought it would have been one of the bigger scenes, you know, something with me and Alex and our antics, but it was a tiny little scene that got me into Selma. So that was a blessing.
Well, speaking of, I guess, a blessing and hashtag happy actor or actress, you know, you've got, it's kind of safe to say you're pretty much at the top of your game right now. I mean, you're an Emmy nominee. You've got 2 shows that are currently going on. You know, you were in Selma, as you just said, and you're coming up on Scream Queens. And I think you had alluded to it earlier, but you're kind of proving, along with people like Viola Davis and Taraji P. Henson and Robin Wright, and of course your co-stars Laurie Metcalf and Alex Borstein, that these women of a certain age are kind of breaking these TV barriers and taking control of this medium that so many people are now jumping on board, you know, coming from film to do television shows. How important is it for you to not only be in this trend, but kind of be, you know, kind of spearhead this trend of you know, these powerful, strong women that aren't, you know, in their teens or in their 20s that are leading the charge to make great television?
Well, first of all, you almost just made me cry again when you put that list out there. So I'm holding it in right now. You know, there are so many people there are so many people who want to be actors for a living, and to be able to have 3 and 4 jobs at a time, I feel overwhelmed. I just feel so grateful, and then to turn around and add to that I'm you know double and triple dipping in these jobs, and you know, and I'm not in my 20s, and I'm not a size 2, and I never got my teeth fixed, and it is it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and I say all the time, you know, God is kind, because, you know, if you look at it on paper, you know, this thank you, this little brown girl from Compton, California, you know, when I told my mother I wanted to act, she said, well, honey, you know, you got a kind spirit. Why don't you go into nursing? And I was like, no, because I want to act. And she said, well, you know, I'm just thinking that would be better for you. And I said, well, wait a minute. Now I got to go somewhere and clean bedpans because you don't believe the vision. You know what I mean? And you don't believe the vision that God gave me, so now I got to go clean bedpans. Wait a minute, lady. So you know, to be at this place and to be able to taste all these different shows, and they're very different. Scream Queens first of all, we all know that Ryan Murphy is brilliant. He is a genius. But Scream Queens is so different from what I do on Soul Man, which is very different from what is happening on Getting On, which is, you know what I mean? And which is all of these things are not surprising for a very young ingenue. A nice little tender bud in the, you know, business with legs up to her neck. You know what I mean? But when you turn it around and you look at it on paper and you say she's what now? You know what I mean? Just a little 5'3" nothing. You know what I mean? Thicker than a Snicker, the color of coffee with heavy cream, and she got that gap. What happened? And we're still going to say, yes, this is the person who we want. And it doesn't matter that she's on another show on another network. We still want her over here too. You know what? What happens when you get on the other side of overwhelmed? You know what I mean? I don't even know. I just feel like sometimes I want to run around in this house and holler because I feel so incredibly blessed. I really, really do.
Well, I think this kind of also lends to the mantra that your mother's always right, because you ended up playing a nurse on television, which is what you wanted to do, and now you're an Emmy nominee for it.
Okay, wait a minute, because I don't want my mother to watch this interview and hear you say that, because she said the same thing, talking about, see, I told you you'd make a wonderful nurse. I'm like, Mom, I'm not a real nurse. And knock it off.
Well, we want to congratulate you and wish you the best of luck. Again, congratulations on your very deserved Emmy nomination, and we look forward to speaking to you again, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.